Welcome back to Field Expedient, the channel that digs into the moments when the rulebook gets thrown out the window, and survival depends not on protocol, but on pure, unadulterated battlefield ingenuity. We train our soldiers rigorously. We drill procedures into them until they're muscle memory. We issue technical manuals thick as phone books, outlining the exact right way to load, aim, fire, maintain, and even breathe around military hardware. Why? Because discipline saves lives. Because procedure is written in the blood of those who learned the hard way. But what happens when the procedure is the problem? What happens when the right way is too slow, too cumbersome, too safe? For a situation that is anything but. Tonight's story comes from the guts of a Sherman tank, deep in the hedgerow hell of Normandy. It's about a gunner, a young man considered reckless, maybe even a liability, by his battle-hardened sergeant. He had developed a trick, a way to make his gun react faster, traverse quicker, spit death a fraction of a second sooner than the engineers intended. It was dangerous. It was unauthorized. It was, in the strictest sense of the word, illegal. His sergeant told him if he ever tried it, he'd face a court-martial. But when his tank, his crew, his entire unit, drove straight into the kill zone of an unseen German ambush, and the seconds stretched into an eternity of incoming fire. That illegal shortcut was the only thing standing between 30 men and certain fiery death. This is how one gunner's illegal shortcut saved his entire unit from certain death. Before we climb into that turret, if you believe that sometimes the real courage lies in breaking the rules to save your brothers, then I need you to secure our lines. First, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It's the best way to support the channel and make sure you don't miss these critical after-action reports. Second, give this video a like. It tells the algorithm that these stories of frontline innovation need to be heard. And finally, drop a comment down below. Tell us what country and city you're watching from. It's always inspiring to see our global muster roll call. All right, lock and load. Let's get moving. My name is Corporal Frank Miller. Yeah, another Miller. Seems like half the Army was named Miller back then. But the guys in Baker Company, 741st Tank Battalion, just called me Hotshot. And trust me, it wasn't a compliment. It was Sergeant Kilpatrick's little way of reminding me, every single damn day, that he thought I was a reckless, undisciplined, corner-cutting menace who was going to get us all killed. Kilpatrick was my tank commander, a gravel-voiced bull of a man from Chicago who had survived Kasserine Pass and worshipped the M4 Sherman and its technical manuals like they were the Holy Bible. Me? I was just a farm kid from Iowa who happened to be unnaturally good at putting shells where they needed to go. But I had zero patience for rules that didn't make sense in the middle of a firefight. We were in Normandy, July '44, Bocage country, a claustrophobic nightmare of ancient sunken lanes, impenetrable hedgerows 10 feet high, and hidden German anti-tank guns waiting around every blind corner. It was a place designed to kill tanks, especially our Shermans, which stood tall and had armor that the newer German guns could slice through like butter. Speed was life, not road speed. You couldn't go faster than a crawl in those lanes, but reaction speed. Turret traverse speed, getting the first shot off. That was the difference between driving home and brewing up. And our Sherman, God love her, had a flaw. A big one. The hydraulic turret traverse. The system that swung the gun left and right was good. It was smooth. But it wasn't fast, especially if you were trying to make a big rapid swing, say 90 degrees or more, to engage a target that popped up on your flank. There was a governor, a hydraulic flow limiter, built into the system. It was a safety feature. It was designed to prevent the gunner from swinging the massive, multi-ton turret so fast that it would damage the traverse mechanism or slosh the hydraulic fluid, or even just make the controls too jerky and imprecise. It made sense, on paper, in a training exercise. But here, in this green hell where a Panzerfaust could appear out of a bush 10 yards away, that safety governor felt like a death sentence. It felt like wading through molasses while someone was shooting at you. I found the governor. Took me a week of performing maintenance after hours, deep in the guts of the turret basket, tracing hydraulic lines with a greasy finger and a flashlight clenched in my teeth. It was a simple valve assembly, tucked away behind the main pump, and I figured out it wasn't complicated. It could be adjusted, not removed. That would be too obvious, and probably would break the damn thing. But there was a small, unassuming adjustment screw, sealed with factory paint. If you broke that seal and turned that screw, say 3 full turns counterclockwise, you could significantly increase the hydraulic flow rate to the traverse motor. You could make that turret whip. You could cut the time it took to swing 90 degrees from a sluggish 6 seconds down to maybe 3 seconds. In the bocage, 3 seconds was the difference between life and eternity. It was also the difference between following procedure and willful destruction of government property, punishable by court-martial. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was dangerous. Increasing the flow could potentially damage the seals or make the traverse jerky at fine adjustments. It voided the warranty, so to speak. But I also knew, with the absolute certainty of a man who had already seen 2 Shermans in our platoon burn because they couldn't get their guns around fast enough, that it was necessary. I broke the seal. I turned the screw. I tested it, late one night. The turret whining like a banshee, swinging left and right with a speed that felt alive, that felt right. It was still controllable for fine aiming, just faster, violently faster on the big swings. It was my secret weapon, my illegal shortcut, and Sergeant Kilpatrick found out. He didn't find the adjustment screw. I'd resealed it carefully with some captured German paint that almost matched. But he felt it. During a brief lull, we were doing turret drills, practicing acquiring targets. He called out, "Tank, right flank, 90 degrees." I hit the power traverse. The turret didn't just swing, it leapt. It slammed to a halt, perfectly on target, in maybe 3.5 seconds. Kilpatrick, standing in his commander's hatch, was thrown against the side of the cupola by the sudden, unexpected inertia. He dropped down into the turret, his face pale, then flushed red with fury. He knew. He didn't know how, but he knew. "Miller!" he roared, his voice shaking the entire tank. "What in the hell was that? Did you feel that? The traverse, it jumped." "Felt smooth to me, Sarge," I lied, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Maybe you just weren't braced." His eyes narrowed. He was no fool. He grabbed the commander's override controls, the ones that let him aim and fire the gun himself. He swung the turret left, then right. He couldn't deny it. It was faster, noticeably faster. "You messed with it," he hissed, his voice dangerously low. "Don't you lie to me, Miller. You messed with my goddamn turret traverse. You adjusted the governor, didn't you? You broke the goddamn seal." I stayed silent. Denying it was pointless now. "You stupid, arrogant, hotshot kid." He exploded. "Do you have any idea what you've done? That governor is there for a reason. It's a safety. You push it too hard now. You could blow a hydraulic line. You could jam the whole damn mechanism. You could get us stuck facing the wrong way in the middle of a fight. All because you want to shave off a couple of lousy seconds?" 3 seconds, Sarge, I said quietly. "Maybe 4. That's not lousy. That's insubordination." He cut me off. "That's court-martial offense. You listen to me, Miller, and you listen good. You are never, ever, to use the power traverse like that again unless I give you a direct order. And even then, you feather it. You treat it like glass. And the second we get a chance, you are putting that governor back to factory spec, or so help me God, I will personally drag you in front of the battalion commander myself. Are we clear?" "But Sarge, the speed—" "Are we clear?" he roared, his face an inch from mine. "Yes, Sergeant," I choked out. "Clear. So, I had my secret weapon, but I couldn't use it. I had the fastest gun in Normandy, but I was under orders to treat it like a museum piece." The irony was a bitter, metallic taste in my mouth. We continued our crawl through the bocage. Every day was the same terrifying routine. Advance 500 yards, wait for the infantry to clear the next hedgerow, listen for the crack of an unseen 88, pray it wasn't aimed at you. Kilpatrick watched me like a hawk. Every time I traversed the turret, I could feel his eyes boring into the back of my head. I used the manual crank mostly, the slow, agonizing hand wheel, just to avoid provoking him. My shortcut was useless. a source of constant simmering resentment between us. The rest of the crew felt the tension. Mac, our loader, a quiet guy from Philly, stopped talking to me. Henderson, the driver, seemed to jump every time Kilpatrick yelled. We were a broken crew, held together by fear and the thin steel walls of the Sherman. And then came Hill 112. It wasn't even a hill, more like a gentle rise in the terrain, but it commanded a critical crossroads. And aerial recon showed it was crawling with Germans. Not just infantry. Armor. Our orders were simple. Baker Company would take the hill. 3 Shermans, supported by a platoon of infantry. We were the lead tank. Again. Kilpatrick was white-knuckled, chewing his lip raw. "All right, listen up." He briefed us, his voice tight. "We go slow. Henderson, stay off the road. Hug the hedge on the left. Miller, you keep your eyes glued to that ridge line. Anything moves, you call it. And you wait. For you, my order." "Got it. Got it, Sarge," I muttered. We started forward, the tank lurching over the rutted track, the infantry fanned out behind us. The air was thick, humid, buzzing with insects. It felt wrong. Too quiet. Like Hill 112 was holding its breath, waiting for us. We were maybe 300 yards from the crest when all hell broke loose. It wasn't an 88. It was worse. A machine gun, an MG-42, opened up from our right flank. Hidden in a thicket, the sound was terrifying. A solid buzzsaw rip of tracers that hammered against our side armor like angry hornets. Ping, 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 crack. An RPG round slammed into the turret right next to my periscope, showering the inside with spall. No penetration, but the world went white and ringing. "Contact right! Contact right!" Kilpatrick screamed. "Infantry! Miller, traverse!" "Machine gun nest. 3 o'clock. Get in the gun!" The crack of the RPG hit wasn't just loud. It was intimate. It felt like someone had swung a blacksmith's hammer directly into my skull. My world dissolved into a ringing, high-pitched "eeeeee." A snowstorm of white-hot spall zipping past my face, and the sudden, terrifying smell of burnt paint and high explosives inside the turret. I was thrown sideways, my helmet cracking against the breech of the 75mm, my vision swimming. The MG-42, that goddamn buzzsaw, was still hammering us, the bullets screaming as they ricocheted off the hull, a sound like a million angry dentists drilling into your soul. Through the ringing, I heard Kilpatrick screaming, his voice distorted, panicked. "Contact right, 3 o'clock, Miller, traverse." "Traverse, damn you! Mac, get in the gun, get it up!" I fumbled for the controls, my hands slick with sweat, my brain still trying to reboot. Traverse right, MG nest. Okay. I gripped the power traverse handle, the cold, knurled steel a familiar anchor in the chaos. My thumb hovered over the control stud, and I hesitated. Not from fear, not this time, from orders. "Treat it like glass, feather it." Kilpatrick's voice echoed in my skull, colder and more terrifying than the German machine gun. If I slammed this thing, if I used the speed, I knew it had, he'd know, and the court-martial wouldn't matter, because he'd likely just shoot me himself right here. So I did it his way. I eased the stud forward, gently, feeding hydraulic fluid into the motor. The turret began to move, ponderously, agonizingly, slowly. It felt like steering a battleship with a canoe paddle. The whine of the hydraulics was a pathetic, low groan, completely drowned out by the rip, 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 rip of the MG-42 that was still chewing into our side. Where's my Kilpatrick roared. His head ducked below the rim of his hatch now. The MG fire too intense. "Mac, status!" "Almost there, Sarge," Mac yelled back from behind me. The loader's hatch was a cramped hell of flying brass, spent shell casings rolling underfoot, and the constant jarring impact of bullets. He was fighting to get the standard issue AP round out of the breech and the fat, shorter HE round in. It was a clumsy, heavy, dangerous ballet, performed in a shaking steel box that was actively being shot at. More seconds bled away. My turret was maybe halfway to 3 o'clock. The MG-42 hadn't stopped. Tracers were skipping off the road, ricocheting up into the trees. I could hear, even over the din, the fainter crack-crack of M1 Garands. Our infantry support pinned down, trying to return fire, but they were horribly exposed. "Henderson!" Kilpatrick screamed. "Get us out of the lane! Find some cover! Left! Get us behind that stone wall!" "Trying, Sarge!" Henderson yelled back, his voice tight with strain. "She's bogging down! This mud!" The tank lurched violently, dipped, then stalled with a sickening clunk, the engine sputtering before catching again. We were stuck in the open lane, taking fire from the flank, with my gun still slowly, uselessly, trying to get on target. This was it. This was exactly the scenario I had feared. The safe, governed traverse was getting us killed. The MG-42 gunner wasn't stupid. He could see our turret wasn't firing back. He was getting bolder, the tracers concentrating on the turret ring, trying for a lucky penetration. Or maybe just trying to jam it completely. And the RPG team. They were reloading. I knew it. They had maybe 10 seconds, 15 at most, before another shaped charge slammed into us. "Miller, faster!" Kilpatrick screamed, his voice raw with desperation. "Get that gun around!" Faster? How? Unless I broke the rule, unless I disobeyed the order, unless I slammed that traverse stud all the way forward, unleashing the full, illegal, governor-bypassed fury of the hydraulic motor. Risk blowing a seal? Risk jamming the turret? Risk Kilpatrick's wrath? Or risk dying, right here, right now, while my gun crawled towards the target like a slug in winter? The MG-42 tracers were walking closer to my gunner's sight. Another RPG could hit any second. Our infantry was getting chewed up. 3 seconds. My shortcut could save 3 seconds, maybe 4, an eternity. Screw him, I thought, a surge of cold, adrenaline-fueled defiance washing over me. Screw the court-martial, screw the manual. I was about to slam the stud to unleash the beast, my thumb tensing, when something else caught my eye. Not at 3 o'clock. Not where Kilpatrick was screaming, not where the immediate, noisy threat was, but forward. 11 o'clock. Through a momentary, swirling gap in the smoke and the lingering morning mist that clung to the hollows near the ridge. It wasn't a flash. It wasn't movement. It was geometry. A perfectly flat, dark yellow vertical plane where there should have been the soft, irregular green of a bush. It was the side of a turret, not a Sherman turret, too low, too angular. And the gun. My God, the gun. It wasn't long like an 88. It was short, stubby, but thick. Thick as a sewer pipe. It was a Sturmgeschütz, a Stug 3, an assault gun. Low profile, heavily armored from the front, and mounting a short-barreled 75mm cannon designed to kill infantry and bunkers, but perfectly capable of punching through a Sherman's side armor from this range. Maybe 250 yards. It was hull down, nestled perfectly behind a slight rise, almost invisible. And its gun. Its gun was already pointed directly at us. It hadn't fired yet. Why? Maybe the commander was waiting, letting the MG-42 and RPG team draw our attention, letting us expose our weaker side armor as Henderson tried to maneuver. It was a classic, perfectly executed L-shaped ambush, and we had driven straight into the fucking kill sack. My blood turned to ice water. This was the real threat. The MG-42 was a nuisance. The RPG was dangerous. But the Stu-G was the killer. Its first shot. From this range, hitting our exposed side while we were stuck and distracted. It wouldn't just cripple us. It would kill us. It would punch straight through, ignite the ammo racks, and turn the lucky lady into a 30-ton crematorium. "He up!" Mac roared, slamming the breech shut. The he round was finally loaded. "Miller, fire!" Kilpatrick screamed. Still focused on the MG-42 at 3 o'clock, the target my gun was still slowly crawling towards. "Fire on the MG!" This was the moment, the impossible choice. Obey my sergeant, fire the she round at the machine gun nest on the right, using the agonizingly slow traverse. It would take another 2, maybe 3 seconds just to get on target. And in those 3 seconds, the Stugs at 11 o'clock, the real killer would fire. Its gun was already laid. It was just waiting for the perfect moment. Or disobey. Ignore Kilpatrick's screaming. Ignore the MG-42 chewing on our flank. Ignore the RPG team that was probably lining up their second shot. And use my illegal, dangerous governor bypass traverse to whip the turret left, 90 degrees in the opposite direction. To engage the Stoogie first. Could I even make the shot? He was the wrong round for engaging armor, even a Stoog. But it was what was in the tube. And maybe, just maybe, a direct hit with HE, even if it didn't penetrate, could stun the crew, damage the optics. Something. Buy us the precious seconds we needed for Mac to load AP, for Henderson to get us unstuck. It was insane. It was insubordination of the highest order. It was betting everything, my life, the crew's lives, my court-martial, on a 3-second traverse and a 1 in a million shot with the wrong ammunition. Kilpatrick was screaming my name, his voice a raw, broken sound of pure panic. "Miller, fire! Fire right, damn you! Fire!" I saw the Stug. It hadn't moved. Its short, ugly gun was still pointed right at our heart. It was waiting. It was toying with us. The commander was probably watching our turret crawl slowly right, thinking we hadn't even seen him. Now. It had to be now. Screw it, I breathed, and I slammed my thumb down, hard, on the power traverse stud, pushing it all the way forward, unleashing the full, unbridled, illegal power of the modified hydraulics. The effect was instantaneous and violent. The turret didn't just swing left, it jumped, it leapt. The whine of the hydraulic motor wasn't a groan anymore. It was a high-pitched scream. The entire tank rocked sideways with the sudden massive shift in inertia. Kilpatrick, who had been braced for a slow turn right, was thrown like a rag doll against the opposite side of his cupola, letting out a roar of shocked pain and fury. "Miller, what in the blue hell are you? Left! You're going left! Are you insane?" I ignored him. My world shrank to the gun sight. The landscape outside wasn't panning smoothly. It was a blurred, streaking mess as the turret whipped around with terrifying speed. 3 o'clock. 2. 1. 12. 11. I released the stud. The turret, all 12 tons of it, slammed to a halt with a jolt that rattled my teeth, the momentum making the gun tube bounce. It was sloppy. It was dangerous. It was glorious. And it had taken less than 3 seconds. The Stoogie. It was right there, filling my sight, 250 yards away, its crew probably blinking in stunned disbelief at the speed of our reaction. They hadn't fired. They had hesitated, and I had just bought myself maybe 1 second. The HE round was still in the tube. Wrong shell. Right target. Crosshairs settled on the lower glacis plate, right where the driver's viewport slit was. A prayer. A hope. A desperate gamble. "On the way," I screamed, my voice raw, and I stomped the firing pedal. Before Kilpatrick could even process what was happening, before he could scream, "Override," before he could stop me, the 75mm cracked, the tank bucked, the turret filled with smoke, and the fat, slow, high-explosive shell began its lazy, hopeful arc towards the killer in the hedgerow. The high-explosive shell, M48 designation, felt suicidally slow. Compared to the flat, vicious trajectory of the AP rounds I was used to, this thing looped through the air like a mortar round, a fat black bumblebee on a mission it wasn't designed for. My entire world, the entire fate of the lucky lady and her crew, hung suspended in the 2 seconds it took for that shell to cross 250 yards. I watched it through the M70 sight, my breath frozen in my chest, the acrid cordite smoke stinging my eyes. I saw the Stuggie, still sitting there, its gun pointed at us, a perfect black hole of death. Had the crew bailed? Had they frozen? Or were they just unlucky? The HE shell descended. It didn't hit the thick, sloped glacis plate. That would have been useless, a mere firecracker splash. It didn't hit the gun mantlet. It hit exactly where I had prayed it would, where the last, desperate spasm of my gunner's instinct had placed the crosshairs. right on the upper edge of the lower hull, just below the driver's viewport slit, striking the hard, frozen earth and the steel plate simultaneously. The detonation wasn't the sharp crack of penetration. It was a deep, concussive, booming whump, a dirty orange and black fireball that completely engulfed the front of the Stug. It wasn't designed to pierce armor. It was designed to blast, and blast it did. The effect was instantaneous and shocking. The Stug didn't explode, not in the Hollywood sense, but it convulsed. The entire 24-ton vehicle seemed to jump, its front end lifting slightly off the ground from the sheer, upward force of the detonation trapped beneath it. A huge cloud of dirt, snow, and oily black smoke obscured it for a second. When the smoke cleared, the Stug was still there. But it was wrong. The short, stubby 75mm gun, which had been aimed directly at my heart, was now canted drunkenly upwards, pointing uselessly at the sky. The driver's viewport was a blackened star-shaped crater, and smoke, thick, greasy, white smoke, the unmistakable signature of an internal fire-consuming ammunition propellant, began to pour from the commander's hatch, from the gun barrel itself, from every seam and joint. My HE shell hadn't penetrated the armor. It didn't need to. The concussion alone, the sheer, brutal shockwave traveling through the steel, had likely killed or stunned the crew inside. The spalling, fragments of their own armor ripped from the inside by the blast, would have turned the crew compartment into a shredder, and the blast itself, channeled under the hull, had clearly damaged the gun's elevation mechanism and, crucially, had found something flammable inside. Maybe hydraulic fluid, maybe stored ammunition. It didn't matter. The Stu-G was dead. It was a kill. A mission kill, at the very least. A burning, smoking, impotent wreck. I had traded a machine gun nest for an assault gun. I had disobeyed a direct order. I had used the wrong shell. And I had just saved our lives. "Target, cease fire! Target destroyed!" I screamed into the intercom, my voice a raw, ragged sob of relief. I ripped my eye away from the sight, my vision swimming, my entire body shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. The turret stank of cordite sweat and the hot metallic smell of fear. Mac, the loader, was just staring at me, his mouth open, an unused AP round held forgotten in his hands. Henderson, the driver, was breathing in harsh, ragged gasps over the intercom, his knuckles probably white on the controls. And Kilpatrick, Sergeant Kilpatrick, was slowly, deliberately, pulling himself up from the turret floor where my violent, illegal traverse had thrown him. His face was pale, smeared with grease, and there was a thin trickle of blood running from his hairline where he'd hit the radio mount. He didn't look angry. He didn't look furious. He looked stunned. He looked like a man who had just seen a ghost punch out a heavyweight champion. He stared at me, then his gaze shifted, looking through his own commander's periscope towards 11 o'clock. He saw the burning, smoking Stu-G. He saw the canted gun. He understood. He then looked towards 3 o'clock, where the MG-42 nest should have been, the target he had ordered me to engage. The MG-42 was still there, still firing sporadic, nervous bursts. The tracers zipping harmlessly over our heads now that Henderson had managed to get us slightly lower behind the damaged stone wall. Kilpatrick looked back at the Stu-G, back at the MG-42, back at me. His face was unreadable. The silence stretched, broken only by the crackle of the burning assault gun and the distant, fading rip of the German machine gun. "Mac," Kilpatrick finally said, his voice quiet, hoarse. Get AP in the gun." "AP loaded, Sarge," Mac replied instantly, his voice shaky but obedient. He ejected the smoking HE casing, which clattered to the floor, joining the spent AP casing from my first useless shot against the Tiger. Wait, did I say Tiger earlier? The previous story had a Tiger. This story has a Stu-G, correcting my internal monologue, against the Stu-G. Mac slammed the long, lean, armor-piercing round home. "AP up!" "Miller," Kilpatrick said, still not looking at me, his eyes fixed on the MG-42 nest through his periscope. "Target, machine gun nest, 3 o'clock, range, 150. I didn't speak. I put my eye back to the sight. I used the manual traverse crank. the slow, familiar wheel. I laid the crosshairs precisely on the flickering muzzle flash hidden in the thicket. "On target, Sergeant," I said, my voice flat. "Fire," he ordered. Crack. The tank bucked. The turret filled with smoke for the third time. Through the sight, I saw the red tracer fly true. It disappeared into the thicket. A beat later, a small, satisfying thump and a brief flicker of orange. The MG-42 went silent, permanently. "Target," I reported, my voice devoid of emotion. "Clear." Kilpatrick still didn't look at me. He keyed the platoon radio. His voice was rough, but steady. "Baker 1, this is Baker Lead. Objective secure. Repeat, objective secure." We encountered heavy resistance. 1 assault gun, 1 MG nest, unknown number of infantry, all neutralized. Route is clear. Baker 2, Baker 3, move up and form on me. Out. He let go of the mic. The adrenaline was starting to fade, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness and the nauseating smell of burnt propellant and fear. The turret was a disaster zone. Spent casings littered the floor. Oily hydraulic fluid dripped from the damaged traverse lines. The coax was mangled, and the air was barely breathable. Mac was already trying to bandage his arm with a field dressing. Henderson was still breathing like he'd run a marathon. Kilpatrick finally turned. He looked at the mess. He looked at Mac's arm. He looked at the jammed traverse mechanism. And then he looked at me, his gunner, the hotshot, the liability who had just saved his life by breaking every rule in the book. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He didn't even congratulate me. He just reached down, picked up one of the heavy, still warm 75mm HE shell casings from the floor, the casing from the shot that killed the Stug. He held it in his hand, weighing it, looking at the stenciled markings. Then he looked at me, and his eyes were different. The hardness was still there, but the anger, the contempt, was gone, replaced by something else, a grudging, understanding, maybe even respect. "Miller," he said, his voice low, just for me, "you ever pull a stunt like that again? You override my fire command. You use that goddamn traverse like a maniac. You waste ammo on a hunch." He paused, holding my gaze. I braced for the court-martial threat. It didn't come. "You better make damn sure," he finished, his voice a low growl, "that you kill the son of a bitch." He tossed the heavy HE casing into my lap. It was surprisingly warm, a souvenir. "Now," he barked, the sergeant back in command, his voice filling the turret again. "Somebody get some air in here. It stinks like hell. Mac, how bad's the arm? Henderson, see if you can rock us out of this ditch. Miller." He looked at the jammed, useless power traverse controls, then at the manual crank handle. "Looks like you're going to be getting a workout. We got a long way to go, and from now on, you call the targets you see first, got it?" I looked down at the warm shell casing in my lap. My illegal shortcut hadn't just saved the unit. It had saved me. I wasn't hotshot anymore. I was a gunner. His gunner. "Got it, Sarge," I said, and for the first time since Normandy I actually meant it. Loud and clear.